Welcome, sir. Today you are with us on the podcast of MentorMyBoard's Leaders Thrive Here. And having you here is an excellent opportunity for our audience to pick up a thing or two about leadership development, especially when it comes to how can you chart your career towards leadership when you are in a corporate.
Thank you, Sandhya. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you, sir. So, as a coach, sir, what kind of skills should professionals focus on so that they can become eligible, and once they are selected, they become efficient leaders of the board?
Yeah, very interesting because people concentrate on skills, but I'd like to say they need to concentrate on the competencies. Mm-hmm. Skills are the language of work, whereas competencies are the language of behavior, including the skills and the application of the skills, right? So I'm sure you also would know that even if you apply for a job, there is an interview and you are asked a lot of questions just to find out whether you are the right fit for the corporate, right? So in any role that you play, there are, I think, three important aspects. One is, of course, you, because you are giving or offering your service to somebody.
Right.
The second is the organization which employs you. And the third is the job or the role that you have to do. So only if all the three match, then only you can say that there is a proper marriage of a placement or a job or the role that you have to do.
Right.
So suppose, for example, one applies for a job and thinking of a long-term career, whether it be at the beginning stage or even today we were discussing even at the board level, there are certain fits that we must get into in terms of the role and in terms of the company and your own expectation. So the first and foremost, of course, is the skills that we talk about. I look at it from the point of view of abilities. Right? So abilities consists of three things: knowledge, how to do the job, the experience, whether you've done the job before, and the skill, which normally we talk about in terms of are you doing the job now, are you learning, are you sharpening your axe, right? So that's ability. The second thing that I think one needs to be concentrating on is the willingness. I mean, we talk of willingness in a very normal way, but I think there is a lot behind the willingness to put in terms of being confident. Confidence comes from ability. If you have knowledge, experience, and skill, you have the confidence will come. You need to understand between overconfidence and underconfidence, or right amount of confidence. The second is commitment. Commitment means that I will not give any excuse. So if you say that confidence is a belief I can, commitment is I will, come what may. And the third most important is that it's the self-motivation. Generally we look for motivation outside, but it has to be self-motivation. They said, I want to do it. And I will do it only if 1, 2, 3, 4 is given to me. Yes, that's important. But at the same time, we have to come back to the role. There is a role to be performed. So the ability, the willingness, and of course, the cultural fit, both in terms of your culture as well as the company's culture. Either the company has to teach you the culture and make you fit there, or you have to adapt yourself and fit there. Right. The third, the next one, of course, is that you must have a contributory attitude. Right. You must do some value addition, and that's where performance comes into the picture.
Correct.
Right. If you don't perform, and irrespective of whatever it might be, I know many people who have not been able to give the performance not because of their hard work or in terms of time, but because of many other things, even extraneous. But even if it is extraneous, I think you have a role to play in anticipating what's happening around the world, in learning what's happening around. And therefore it comes back to, again, commitment, right? So you have to do a value addition. And last but not the least, I think you need to have a character fit. The character fit is knowing what is right, knowing what is wrong, integrity, loyalty, all these factors come into the picture. So irrespective of what you're doing, in terms of if you've got a role to play, you need all these things. And that's what I think the companies need to look for in people, and that's what as a person who's applying for the role, we need to be conscious about it.
Amazing insights there, sir. So I'm sure that, in your role that you play as a coach and as a mentor, leaders especially, would be coming to you and sharing the challenges that they face when it comes to, bringing about an alignment or bringing about a harmony in the boardroom. So what are the typical challenges that they come to you with?
Oh, there are a lot of them. So especially at the highest level, if for example, if it's a CEO, generally, CEO are expected to perform, right? The ball stops at, or the buck stops at the CEO, right? So he's under tremendous stress, and one needs to handle that risk. Sometimes you are all alone, right, at the corporate. You don't know whom to talk, what to talk, right? And that's what they look at. Sometimes the role that they expect from us as a coach is just a shoulder to cry on, right? But when you dwell deeper into it, there are fears, right? So it depends on a situation. It depends on what exactly the situation is. If you know the situation and you are not sure as to how to go about it, a good coach can help you, right? So suppose, for example, you have a press conference. How to handle a press conference is a matter of skill, ability that we talked about, but it's also a matter of how to put across in terms of communication, in terms of soft skills, in terms of showing confidence. So all that is extremely important. So one, at an individual level, these are the types of questions that come. Sometimes as a coach, I might not be able to handle a functional question that he might have, in which case I help him go to the right person. So therefore, as a coach, I feel that you are like a family business doctor. Right? You are the general physician.
Right.
That's the role.
The family doctor.
That's the role that they expect us to play. There are certain other cases where we talk about the board dynamics, right? So there, I think if the entire board is collectively involved in bringing about a cultural change, which the CEO probably feels that that's an issue which is affecting the performance of not just his, but also probably of many other people, then we have to do a board assessment, right? So then you have to bring systems and processes in place. So you do a board assessment, right? Then you benchmark it against something. Either you benchmark against your best performances or your rating systems and find out what's the gap.
Right.
And then you find out what are the solutions for addressing those gaps. So once you identify a problem correctly, I think the solutions follow. So one of the quotes that I like to quote is that if there is a problem, there is a solution, right? If there is a problem which has got no solution, then it's not a problem. It's a fact of life which we have to accept, isn't it? So sometimes certain things fall into that.
True.
So that's these are the two major issues which come up, and this is how we go about it. But at the same time, one must understand the difference between teaching, training, coaching, and mentoring, right?
Correct.
So mentoring is at a highest level. Teaching is, one to many. You can take it in a classroom. Training, probably you can take a particular subject and do a group teaching, but both are short term. Coaching and mentoring are fairly long term.
Right.
Coaching again is maybe one-to-one, but it is for a particular problem, and that term is again taken from the sporting field, right?
Correct.
So you don't need to teach Tendulkar how to bat, bowl, or field, right? But it might be a different opposition. The playground might be different. The environment might be different, and somebody who has done that, been there, can help such people.
Correct.
Mentoring is, of course, a long-term association. You teach work-life balances. You go beyond just the job, and you make the other person think, and they have the answers, right? You just play a role of sort of unlocking the potential, or whatever you might want to call it. Yeah.
Right. So you mentioned something very nice, that the benchmarking, when you are looking at challenges, and so I'm taking the clue from there for our next question, that when you compare, the coaching or mentoring or preparation for leadership succession, when you compare it between global companies and Indian companies, do you find a difference? Is there a gap that you see?
Right now, yes, but I sometimes wonder why that is. Many people feel, and sometimes even I feel that, for example, the US, if you take, their system of coaching and mentoring and teaching is now in line with the current scenario and the rapid changes that are taking place across the world. But I wonder why we have to look at them, because in India is the Guru Shishya Parampara. And when we talk about mentoring, we are talking about that.
Correct.
Right. It's a building of a relationship. Sometimes the Guru might not have answers, but even the Guru finds the answers.
Right.
So they find the answers together. But more important now, I think, in terms of today's coaching is, in America, you have a coach for everybody. I mean, you name a problem and there is a specialist coach, which again depends on whether you want to solve only one particular point of problem at a particular point of time, or you're looking at a long-term solution. But I think that what is different there is they make you think. They help you ask the right questions, and it starts from the management schools itself there. Right. So here, for example, our education system is still archaic. So we have a question paper where you have to answer. There, I have seen universities, they give you a case and they ask you to form the questions. And it can be quite stressful because these are all timed questions. So for example, if an entire class is given a case, the first person who puts in the question gets the easiest of the question. He doesn't have to look very deep into the case.
Correct.
But the more you delay, the last person gets the most difficult one, because he cannot ask the first 14 people what the questions that they ask. So it makes you really think. And the second thing is they ask you to find the solution, right? And then present it to the entire group, so that the group they learns together. So they foster a term of team spirit. So the process, I think, is something which we can sort of take it from there. But now with many of the coaches in India also getting global certification, and they are also being global people, now you have very experienced people who have actually worked abroad, dealt with people from abroad. So even in India, I think we are slowly coming to, finding the right way of mentoring. Even mentoring is an art, right?
True. I agree.
And therefore, and MentorMyBoard is I think the right place there, because I think there is a huge gap. As I said, all the problems that we talked about, you need all types of people. Number one, teachers, trainers, coaches, and mentors. And if somebody has done all that, he has taught, he has also trained, he has also coached, and he has also mentored. I think this is the type of mentor, dream mentor, that you must try and find out and get.
Correct, sir. So that's where I was again coming, you really helped me slide to the next question, that platforms like MentorMyBoard, the kind of efforts, the kind of awareness that they are making, what kind of direction would you like to give them?
So one, of course, in terms of the niche, right? Many businesses in India are ready to go to the IPO, right? So that process of journey from a small business to go to the IPO level, you need certain systems, processes, as well as you need mentoring. That's
correct.
One place I think MentorMy role can definitely play a part. The second is aggregating all these things, right? You have, again, we talked about the business, you talked about the person, and you have talked about the role. All these need, all the three, only when they meet, that you can have the best tri-connect, that I call it. So in terms of doing that, MentorMyBoard can play a part. And I think when we talk about governance, there is a whole lot of things that needs to be done in this country, right? Governance should, and that's what we talked about, the character fit, that should also be a competencies which we must learn and we must develop.
Right.
And when we are talking about competencies, you have these 4 levels of competencies. The first step, of course, you are unconsciously incompetent, and then you become consciously incompetent, and then you become consciously competent, and then the last stage where you become unconsciously incompetent, where it becomes effortless, where it comes naturally to you. That's the stage of competence we want people to be in, especially at the board level.
Right.
At the board level, at the end of the day, today we were also talking about competencies for high performing boards, right? So the competency should be effortless, and more important is today it's the age of team, it's the age of collaborations. So therefore, how to leverage the collaborations, how to work in a team, how to form a team, all these competencies are also being very, very important. And I think MentorMyBoard is the right place for all these things.
Wonderful, sir. Thank you so much. And my final question is about, what we all romanticize, the India story, the India story that's emerging. So as a coach, as a mentor yourself, where do you see, or how can we prepare ourselves more and more for this India story that is emerging, the global India story that is emerging?
Yeah, so you're talking from a purely business point of view, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So I say a business is a living organism. It's got a life of its own, right? As the owner, the person brings the passion, he brings the purpose, he brings the why. The brain is the management, right? In early stages, the heart and the brain are one, right? So sometimes there are tussles between the two. All the other functions that a business performs are parts of the body. And that's the reason why I say that it's like an organism.
Organized.
And what drives it is cash. Cash is the blood which runs through the entire organism, right? So you name the disease of a human body, you can find it in any business. Right? If you take cash, you can have cash cholesterol, you can have a valve problem, you can have a blood flow problem, you can have blood leaking out, you can have, a place where the blood is not reaching, right? So some things might be very quick fixes, some things might be requiring surgery. So we need to look at business in its entirety. And that is, I think, one of the reasons for many businesses failing, right? They get passionate about a particular aspect of business, right? Either they're very passionate about their product or they're very passionate about marketing, but the entire business needs to be managed well. And we are saying for an entrepreneur, the business is a baby, right?
Correct.
So it has to be handled also well. The baby has to grow. It has to grow into a very mature adult. And I think we all have to become good corporate citizens, whether individually and collectively. We have to become a good corporate citizen. Once we become good corporate citizens, I think that will bring about the change that we are talking about in terms of a vibrant India, right?
Amazing, sir. Amazing, sir. I was listening to your words and the image was just conjuring in front of my eyes on how, especially when you said that we need to be good corporate citizens. I think that's a great message for our audience today. Thank you so much for being on our podcast, Where Leaders Thrive. And it has been an amazing experience listening to you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you. My pleasure. It's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.